The Lord be with you.
And with
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke. Jesus addressed this parable to those who were convinced of their own righteousness and despised everyone else. Two people went up to the temple area to pray. One was a Pharisee, and the other was a tax collector. The Pharisee took up his position and spoke this prayer to himself. "Oh God, I thank you that I'm not like the rest of humanity, greedy, dishonest, adulterous, or even like this tax collector. I fast twice a week, and I pay tithes on my whole income." But the tax collector stood off at a distance and would not even raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast and prayed, "Oh God, be merciful to me, a sinner." I tell you, the latter went home justified, not the former. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and the one who humbles himself will be exalted. The Gospel of the Lord.
praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
My dear friends, in the readings last weekend, we were encouraged to remain persistent and constant in our prayer life. Today, we focus on the proper attitude of a steward at prayer. The first reading gives us the confidence to turn to God with all our needs, assuring us that the Lord is a God of justice who knows no favorites. Though not unduly partial toward the weak, yet he hears the cry of the oppressed, as we have sung in the responsorial psalm. Our loving Father delights in hearing from all his children. We are all his favorites. But we learn that a humble attitude will make our prayer lives more effective. We need to be humble. Humility is truth. Humility is the awareness of both our limitations and our blessings, acceptance of who we are. And in today's gospel, Jesus himself gives further instruction on the humble attitude we must have as we approach God in prayer, as he tells this parable of two praying men. One is a Pharisee, a man with respected status, theological training, and all the right credentials. He marches right up to the front in the temple to speak a prayer to himself, thanking God for making him just a little bit superior to everyone else. And the other guy is a tax collector, known by all those people of his state to be a cheater and a sellout to his virtues. In contrast, as I've proclaimed in the gospel, he stands near the back and cries out to God in a simple and honest way, "Be merciful to me, a sinner." Jesus tells us that it's the tax collector, not the Pharisee, who leaves the temple justified. Why? Because the Pharisee was full of himself as he approached God. He felt no real need for God as he rattled off his resume of good works and spiritual practices. His lack of humility from entering into a real dialogue with the Father did not help at all. The tax collector, by contrast, emptied himself as he approached God. He recognized who he was, a sinner. This is the prayer of every steward. It's a prayer how we should pray. With trust, with complete openness to God's will, with a listening mind and heart, ready to serve as God leads. I just love the brief summary of today's gospel because it just says, 2 men went up to the temple to pray. One didn't, and one did. My dear friends, let our prayer be sincere, our humility truthful, and our hearts filled with love when we approach the one who hears us even before we ask. As I said last weekend, today we are celebrating Commitment Sunday for our commitment to Christ living in gratitude program. And therefore, I would like to invite Christine to speak with you for a few moments on how she and her family are living as faithful stewards here at All Saints and participating in the important ministries and organizations in our parish. Welcome, Christine.